What's going on, guys? My name is Triforce Addiction. Welcome back to another COD mode video. So today we are going to be discussing the brand new attachment that came out for the Hades. So this new signature attachment is something that is pretty unusual for the most part because most signature attachments are either stocks or some form of magazine or barrel. I know recently with the RUS 79U we did get a flashlight, and of course, it wasn't really that effective. I mean, a lot of people really didn't care about the flashlight. If anything, I have not seen a single person use it since it's come out. So yeah, like, you know, we do have pretty unusual signature attachments, but this one actually is a far better improvement from the flashlight. So this new attachment for the Hades is basically a heartbeat sensor, something that you could use, you know, for a limited time. This is like this. I think this is the second battery powered attachment that we do have in this game other than the flashlight for the RUS. And I would say that this one actually does not disappoint at all. So we have seen some prior gameplay of the Hades with the heartbeat sensor from the Season 5 test server. This was supposed to be, I guess, the Season 5 signature attachment for the Hades, but it just, we were just given a complete curveball with the RUS flashlight because we didn't even know that was going to be a thing until the update actually came out. We were given like some gameplay of how the heartbeat sensor worked on the Hades as well as how much battery power it had. And a lot of people felt really unsure about this because first, it's not really on a very conventional gun. And second, we didn't know how long the battery was going to last. Maybe it was going to be too short, or maybe it was going to be too overpowered for modes like search and destroy. Of course, concerns like that are obviously going to be very well valid because, yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, why of all weapons would you add a heartbeat sensor to a Hades of all things? And even then, I mean, it could have been given to an assault rifle. It could have been given to even an SMG or some other LMG. And I would say balancing out attachments like this is kind of a concern. Well, at least with the RUS 79U, I felt like it didn't even need to have battery at all. It could just stay permanent because the flashlight really just doesn't do anything at all. Maybe even in the night mode maps, it does flare up a bit, but when it comes to like stuff like this, like the heartbeat sensor where you get to know where your enemies are at all times, I do understand why they added some sort of battery function to this. And given the amount of time that I've had to use this attachment, I think they might have extended the initial battery time from like 30 seconds or like 25 seconds to maybe like 45 seconds to almost a minute. So yes, the battery does last a little bit longer, maybe a little bit too long, especially for search and destroy modes. But again, I mean, it does come at a price. The Hades is pretty well known for the crossbar. That's basically what makes the Hades the Hades. But you're going to have to sacrifice the crossbar and just use the Hades the normal way in order to even use the heartbeat sensor in the first place. So yes, there are some downsides with it, even though obviously it doesn't really tell you. But having it in the placement where the crossbar usually is does explain the recent buffs that the Hades also got, because it did get some ADS buffs, kind of like to make up for the lost ADS speed that you would have normally with the crossbar. And I knew this right from the start. With the moment the Hades got buffed with ADS speed, I knew that was obviously for the heartbeat sensor. To be honest with you guys, I did not really think that the heartbeat sensor would actually make it to this game, mainly because we got the flashlight instead, and I thought maybe that they just scrapped it. But no, when I saw the roadmap, it showed that the heartbeat sensor was actually coming out, and I haven't really spoken about the seasonal challenge to get it. Trust me, it's not really worth talking about. It's very simple. Just get a few kills with the LMG, a few hip fires, and maybe a few, and just I think you have to win a match with the Hades, and that's basically it. It doesn't really take much to unlock attachments nowadays. Granted, it did take me a little longer to unlock the attachment, given the fact that I was doing the in the sea, you know, node, and it wasn't really giving me a lot of like maps where I could, or I guess a lot of games where I could actually use my LMGs to do the challenge. But overall, I did unlock it, and honestly, I'm actually quite impressed by how this performs. So like I said, the battery does last a lot longer than the test server, that's for sure. And you could have it on throughout, I guess, the majority of the round. Of course, obviously, once you run out of battery, it's just going to turn off. And a little fun fact, if it does actually run out of battery and someone picks up your gun, they're not actually going to be able to use the heartbeat sensor either. So like the battery doesn't reset if someone else picks it up. Another thing worth mentioning is that the detection range is actually just nearly the same as it is if you're just using the normal heartbeat sensor. So yes, it does have some pretty long detection range, maybe a little too long for my liking. I think it's a little too strong. And I'm not really that sure if Ghost or even Cold-Blooded could at least negate the effects of, or at least keep you like away from the heartbeat sensor. But yeah, it's worth noting that it does have some pretty good detection range. And as you can see from the gameplay footage, I mean, you could tell that's actually kind of helping me. The only thing I do advise against when it comes to using the heartbeat sensor is do not focus too much on it, especially in Search and Destroy where you have to keep your attention span at the maximum. Yeah, don't try to do that, because I made that mistake a few times using it, and it didn't really, like, you end up getting yourself killed if you focus too much on it. And again, like I said, I'm not sure if Ghost or Cold-Blooded actually keeps them off of the heartbeat sensor, but, you know, it's worth noting that, you know, it's a possibility. Just keep that in mind. I would say this as well, you know, using the Hades, especially if you do have the first legendary for it, it is pretty helpful because the Iron Sight isn't as, you know, obstructive as just the base Hades. So at the end of the day, the question is the heartbeat sensor worth using in COD Mobile? So obviously, well, I mean, when it comes to the attachment at least. So first off, I would recommend using it more in Search and Destroy because I feel like it's infinitely more helpful. But again, like, I don't know if it's, you know, if it has any downsides against Ghost or Cold-Blooded. So yes, that's something to keep in mind. Like I said, don't pay too much attention to it while you're playing because you do have to stay focused, especially in a mode where you can't respawn. But again, I'm not really that sure how often this attachment is going to be used. It really just depends on the player base and how they decide to use this. But yeah, it does seem kind of overpowered for now. It does have pretty big detection range, as well as a pretty big battery. I don't know if they're ever going to nerf the battery, but they might nerf the detection range. I'm not really that sure, but again, it just depends on how often this thing is being used. And keep in mind, this attachment is only a few hours old, so yes, not everyone has their hands on it or even has tried to do the challenge yet, so it's going to take a little bit more time for, I guess, the devs to really decide whether or not they actually need to nerf this. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe for some more COD Mobile content, and I'll see you guys next time.